There's a very good book that everybody should read called *Sapiens* by Yuval Harari, an Israeli historian. It's a brief history of humankind.
How long does it take you to read a book?
I never worry about that. I download it on Audible, and when I drive, I listen to a chapter at a time. Don't worry about reading a whole book. Just worry about the fact that author has an argument to be made. There's a thesis, and then around that thesis will be several or many examples. Don't worry about
getting from a book.
No.
I started reading a book about the British Empire and the colonization of the world.
Yeah.
And I started reading it in Singapore because I was interested.
Yeah.
And then it was too much for me.
Now, so I would have told you to stop reading that, and I would have given you Yuval Harari's book, because Harari in *Sapiens* gives you perspective on what empire and imperialism means. We have always been imperialistic, all cultures. There's this idea that the West was imperialistic. It's a bunch of horse shit. The Persians were, the Assyrians were, the Babylonians were. It's never not been that way.
Yeah.
The Romans were, the Greeks were, and we are all a product of imperial expansion. And by the way, so were the Mongols, so were the Turks, so were the Ottomans. So we're all a product of essentially a stronger group of a stronger country with better technology, better organization, better political systems, or at least more efficient political and military institutions, that then went on to take over and subjugate people against their will. That is the story of human history. We've come a long way now, but we are now nudging toward essentially a global empire. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
We're all essentially using the same words. When the United States, I'm stealing from *Sapiens*, but when the United States has an argument with Persia or even North Korea, we're using the same concepts. We're talking about the language of nuclear physics. We're talking about nation-state sovereignty. We're talking in the same language through interpreters. So, but we're all kind of talking about, human rights, and you're wrong because you're being an aggressor. These were not conversations that were had between the Romans and the Goths.
Yeah.
The Romans were like, hey, you guys are fucking barbarians. We're going to kill you and take all your women and all your resources. Now you can give it to us voluntarily, or we're going to come in and cut you in half. And we're right because we have might.
Yeah.
That's not a platform that the world would recognize anymore. You'd be considered a pariah.
Yeah.
That's a long fucking winded thing to say. But the point is that, that's a book to read, *Sapiens*.
No, what do you think's going to go on with, what do you think about this North Korea thing?
I think that North Korea is, I think that what will probably happen is China and Russia will see more benefit in siding with the United States, at least publicly. And there is a rumor that the premier of China has no respect for that little shithead in North Korea.
Yeah.
He annoys him. And so, no one wants to see a nuclear Japan, not South Korea, not Japan. I'm sorry, a nuclear North Korea. So I think what will happen is, I really believe that North Korea is afraid of Trump. I think they think he's as unpredictable as their own leader.
Yeah.
And I think that they will have to show a sort of publicly that they're not taking any shit, but they will make concessions because they know they can't win a war.
There's no way they can.
They're terrified they're really terrified of losing their regime, which is what would happen. I mean, so I think what you'll see is some cooperation.
I never looked at it from that perspective, because I guess he looks at it like, oh yeah, if I start this fight, sure, I'll start the fight, sure, they'll bomb us, but then they will overtake me and I will no longer get all the pleasures I get out of life.
It'll be a disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a completely unwinnable war conventionally, or, God forbid, in a nuclear capacity. Oh, and by the way, I think they probably also know that we have the ability to jam their technology, their nuclear technology.
Yeah.
And there's even a school of thought that Michael Mouse is talking about on Rogan, and Michael wrote a book on this, that they had these failed tests on purpose. They just have to show face. But, you want to miniaturize a hydrogen bomb and put it on an intercontinental ballistic missile? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You can do that. Now, if you think that there's any value in shooting that at a European, Asian, or American ally, or God forbid, the continental United States, it will be the end. It will be the end of your existence.
Yeah.
So it makes zero sense. I mean, somebody was talking about how Oppenheimer, the father of the nuclear program, should have won a Nobel Peace Prize, because the irony is he created a weapon that could end our very existence as human beings, but it ushered in many ways, at least the long-term ramifications. You can make the argument that it made the world more peaceful.
What was it called? Assured mutual destruction.
Yeah.
When we were kids, I remember learning about that.
Yeah.
Do you know what are your news go-tos in the morning when you wake up?
Lately I've been reading books.
Break me into what's your morning look like? I like NPR.
Yeah. I like the Wall Street Journal. I still read the New York Times, even though they drive me up a fucking wall.
Yeah.
And I try to get my news from a lot of different sources. So I guess that. So when I'm traveling, I'll pick up The Economist, Time Magazine, sometimes Newsweek, mainstream media. But you have to take all of it with a grain of salt. And you have to read both sides of the political spectrum.
See, I have such little attention that I read the one side and I go, "That's my opinion," and then
it's okay. The problem is that So let's take Bush's the tax policy, the Institute on Tax Policy. What's it called? Let me find it for you. But either way, you would think that they are a bipartisan. So the headlines read that Trump's tax plan is good for the wealthy.
Yeah.
The problem is that the people saying that, the Institute for Tax Policy, I'll find it in a second, but that is a not a bipartisan group. That is not a neutral group.
Yeah.
That is a left-leaning, essentially think tank, along with the Brookings Institute. They're more left-leaning. They're not right-leaning. So they tend to have a point of view that cutting taxes is not good.
Yeah.
It's just a philosophy. I don't know if they're right or wrong. That's a long debate. But you are not getting but you can be fooled in thinking that, well, it looks like the Tax Policy Center. It's basically, it's a lot of people on the right, like the Wall Street Journal, ran an article saying that it's basically mainstream media's it created a citadel of left-wing propaganda.
Yeah.
And so you have to know that when you're reading that. So when you read the headlines that that Trump's proposed tax policy is going to make rich people richer and only good for the 1%, that's not a sort of neutral study.
Yeah.
That's a skewed point of view from a group of people that believe that higher taxes are better than lower taxes. Yeah. And if you don't know that, and you read that in the New York Times, which is what you did, or in CNN, which are left-leaning publications, you're going to take that as gospel.
Yeah.
And so you get one side of the point of view.
First time I saw that happening was with the Trayvon Martin thing. Mm-hmm. And I was getting everything from Facebook. But all I grew up in Florida, so everyone that I was reading was from Florida. Mm-hmm. And it was friends that grew up in Florida that are conservative, have guns,
sure,
believe that it's okay. It's the stand your ground law is so everyone in Florida. No, not everyone. I can't say that, but the majority of my friends in Florida are like, "No, I have a conceal and carry permit. Yeah, stand your ground." That's
so the problem with the internet is it allows you to create your own echo chamber, and then there's an algorithm that'll keep feeding you the information you want to read and hear.
Yeah,
and it will then feed your one-sided point of view until pretty soon you think that's the only reality. That's what's happening. That's why the left and the right they're so diametrically opposed.
Yeah.
Right? All the Priuses and vegans are on this side, all the hunters and meat eaters are on this side, and the muscle cars are on this side. And there are 1,000 examples of that.
I remember at that time I was looking for Nike SBs. They're like a tennis shoe. And I'm reading all this stuff about the Trayvon Martin thing, but I'd seen a picture of Trayvon's dad, an interview with his dad, and I didn't see all I saw was like a dad who lost his son. I couldn't imagine being in his shoes as a parent.
Me too.
That's all I saw. I didn't see what I guess they wanted me to see was like a version of Kimbo Slice or something.
Yeah.
And so I was reading all these things, and then an ad for Nike SBs came up, and I went, "Hey, I wanted Nike. How do they know that?
Yeah.
And then I went, oh, these motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Because I'm clicking on stuff.
Yep.
That's what's coming up in my shit. I was fuck.
That's right. That's exactly right. You're being sold. That's a classic example of what we have to look forward to. It's only going to get more sort of detailed and better at doing that to you.